Hello, family. Welcome back to another episode of Journey to Harmony. I'm your host, Richard Harmon. We are very glad once again to have our friend of the channel, Benjamin Neal, here with us once again. Ben, how you doing?
Great, man. Great. Life could not be better right now. It's fun winning football games.
Definitely. And we're here looking to do our weekly recap on some topics of the week. We'll go ahead and start off at the one that is catching, the global attention first. The war that's currently going on in Palestine. Israel was attacked last week as just about 600 people were killed at a music festival. Babies were taken in hostage. It was a brutal situation that occurred. And Israel right now is in the process of preparing themselves for war. I read yesterday that they had an attack on Lebanon, one of the Hezbollah region locations. But it's a really interesting time, Ben. I want to get your thoughts on what you saw overall.
Yeah, it's really sad what's going on, man. I mean, war is never, you know, sometimes I do believe it is the answer, but war is never wanted.
Yeah,
And Israel's going to have to do what they have to do. And it's really a shame if you're a Palestinian civilian. Hamas is a terrorist organization that runs your country, runs your area of the world. And uh, just war is devastating. And it's not gonna be like in 2010 or the early 2000s where it's just a 6-7 day conflict. I think this is going to be a real one that lasts for a while. I really do.
definitely. Yeah, unfortunately, like you say, like Israel's had shorter wars in the past, a 7 day war. I think it was 1973. But everything that we see here said this is not going to be a short process. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's come out a little bit and he said that that Israel didn't start this war, but Israel definitely will finish it. We're going to inflict
Yeah,
so much pain on our enemy that they will never decide to do this again. And in the past, Israel's had this policy of you harm one of ours, we'll harm 10 of yours. And as the death toll has risen to about 1,000, we know that it's if it's only 1,000 and they have that particular principle, we're a very long way away from the overall conclusion of this process. What's happening right now? It looks like they're in the process of building a buffer zone. So they've basically destroyed most of Palestine. Looks like like that particular region there. Just kind of getting a space between themselves and anyone who is coming, give them an opportunity to see who's coming in rather than having such a close proximity between themselves and their enemy. So it's interesting space right now. There's been a lot of mixed reaction to it. Some of the college students, there have been pro Hamas and pro Palestine rallies around the country, and there was a call from one of the Palestinian leaders to say a day of jihad. So yeah, it's a whole lot going on right now. We're in a very interesting space that we haven't been in since probably the early 2011s, 2015 or something.
I think it's really interesting. The I'll call it the white liberal. I'll just say who it is. It's the white liberal college kid
Yeah.
that that is advocating for Hamas. They, dude, they're going to cut your head off. Those
Hmm.
people do not support the way you live. Um, it's not the Palestinian people. The people are happenstance victims, and I don't have a solution for that. And it's very, very, very sad what's going to happen to, it has already happened to a lot of
Hmm.
Palestinian civilians that have nothing to
Yeah.
do with this. They're just
Yeah.
people living in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And but they are being led by a terrorist organization funded by Hezbollah, and I'm sure that Iran has given them some money and weapons. And their active doctrine is to kill Jews,
Hmm.
is to destroy the state of Israel.
Hmm.
And the two-state solution that everybody's been talking about, yes, it can work,
Hmm.
but it cannot be led by a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
And the longer that this process goes on, we've had our ups and downs. I'm talking the early 2000s, they had a war, if you want to call it that. 2010, they had one. I think 2006, they had one. So it's
Yeah.
always an up and down process. I
Hmm.
think this might just be one of those times where Israel just says, "All right, enough is enough," and it kind of had the writing on the wall. I don't know if you
Mhm.
saw where Netanyahu got rid of their Supreme Court,
Oh wow.
and he's kind of consolidated a little bit more power, a little bit more power.
Hmm.
He's been there a
Hmm.
very long time, and this feels like a natural series of very unfortunate events.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you said, like he's been there for some time, and I think the people of Israel, they had another opportunity with another prime minister. I think it was like 2 years ago or something, and they brought him back, realizing how important and how strong of a response is needed. Right. So the first thing that he declared on the day that it happened was, "This is war," which again shuts down some of the limitations that he has as prime minister and gives him a heightened level of power. And right now, like you said, like it's going to be interesting right now because many people are trying to keep it contained rather than having it explode around the globe. If it gets too, if the actions are too much, then there's people in different countries who will want to respond as well. And as other nations respond, so then it will also pull the U.S. and Europe into war as well. So there's a high probability, but I think also Netanyahu has been in the space long enough that he's not automatically just responding um, in terms of emotion, because at some of the worst things that can happen right now is that if you go in it with emotion, you end up with the Afghanistan war, the
Yeah,
Iraq war, where you spend $2 trillion in 20 years, and at the end of the day, it's not really much that's accomplished. The U.S. has sent over a fleet of warships, one of the largest warships in all the world. So they're preparing themselves as well to defend that opportunity. At the same time, as this war is kicking off, it's the support for Ukraine is beginning to dwindle.
yeah, oh yeah,
And we had a ousting of the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, last about a week ago or 10 days ago or so now, and they're in the process of finding a new speaker. But a big part of what happened is that he kind of signed a bill with like a few hours to go, and it pushed through a whole bunch of spending, and people were very upset about that. So, any thoughts on what you saw with that?
yeah. So, oh, man, yeah, I got thoughts. So it's a really terrible idea to push a spending bill right in September, right at the end of the government fiscal year. Just
Hmm.
push it out, and they really did kick that can. I'm not blaming Speaker McCarthy for that.
Hmm.
All of them get some blame for that.
Yeah,
Stop kicking the can down the road.
yeah.
We are horrible at that and
Hmm.
kicking power to the executive branch. We got to stop.
Hmm.
Second is there is a very particular about 8 people on the right flank that are it, call a spade a spade. They're MAGA guys, and they
Yeah.
want a MAGA guy in there, and
Hmm.
they did a very good job of partnering with Democrats on
Hmm.
getting him out of there.
Yeah.
If you look, it was 216 to 210 was the vote for
Yeah.
yes no to vote him
Hmm.
out. Every Democrat voted yes to get him out of there, and then the
Only eight.
Republican MAGA
Yeah.
guys voted yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So so we have a very interesting thing that happened. That's the first time ever, obviously. Um, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. I don't know if it's really as important as we say it is.
Yeah.
Uh, it's very important to get somebody in there. Like, can we get this spending bill? I'd like for my national parks to be open and my veterans to have paychecks. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the way I feel about
Hmm.
it. And that's something that our perpetually gridlocked, terrible government is going to have to figure
Hmm.
out.
Yeah, it's interesting because that event was kicked off by the possibility of a government shutdown. As we're approaching November again, that bill that was spent was only a 45-day stopgap. So we're heading
Yeah,
again into another time of this particular space right now, and likelihood is that we're getting ready to see one of the longer government shutdowns that we've seen. Overall, this is focused on the spending that has happened. Like during the pandemic, the U.S. spent over $6 trillion in dollars, and we've seen the result of that, the massive amounts of inflation. And we're kind of at a point right now where many people are kind of wondering, how do you keep living? You know, I mean, it's like running your credit card up, and then someone awarding you another credit card, and you're like, well, I might as well just keep going. So, if this is the U.S. in the next 2 or 3 years, their debt is financed on like a 3 to 5 year terms, and they're getting ready to reset at some point. So, $15 trillion at 5% is going to be a massive amount of interest that's going to be paid. So we'll see exactly what happens. Either they're going to pay that interest, or they're going to drop the rates back to zero, and that is going to cause another boom in terms of spending here in the country.
Well, the history's on our side with paying the interest because the United States has all they we don't pay the principal. We do not pay the principal. That we have always paid the interest,
Uh-huh.
and we've always done it on time. So we have a perfect credit score, if you want to call it that, with our lenders and international community and whatnot. So history's on our side there. Um, how much is too much,
Hmm.
and how much until we realize it's not necessarily the debt and the amount we're spending; it's what we're spending our money on. We are wasting dollars uh, on the defense of Europe. We're wasting dollars on, a fleet of Teslas for every senator. And I mean, just a little at a smaller level here in West Virginia, we got the town of War, which is only about 500 people, maybe. They don't have clean drinking water, Richard.
Wow.
But the state government decided, let's go ahead and remodel our chambers. Nobody cares about what those chambers looks like. You know how much money they're spending on that?
Mm.
$50 million.
Wow.
I can hand out cases of water for. I give me $100. I could give a bunch of people water. I mean, it's just government spending is irresponsible. It's not the amount they spend.
Mhm. Yeah, it's I think it's twofold, because the amounts, there's been so much going on right now, and I think the war in Israel has helped to cover some of this, but the last month has been dominated by the headlines of the border crisis, and with ICE, the team that is tasked with defending, or with monitoring the border, has just admitted that a record number, 5.7 million people crossed into the U.S. this past year,
Oof.
which is close to double what it normally is. Um, for the longest time, this has been contained. People in Texas have been overwhelmed by, can you imagine a whole state of people have crossed into your state every single year? And now what's happening is Governor Abbott is shipping, helping to bus many people around the country. So he's asking people, hey, where do you want to stay? And many people have family in Chicago, they have family in New York, DC, and they're just getting buses and helping them to get to where it is that they're going. And the residents of these cities are rallying big time. So people have been. I think New York has received close to 120,000 new residents in the past year. Chicago is spending close to like $200 million to housing and shelter for many of these people. And what's happening as well is that they're using community resources. So if you have a local park, if you have a community center, these are all being turned into shelters right now, and people are, for one thing, they help to keep young kids out of trouble, but also they're adding also to the density of the population, and this is beginning to cause a bit of a stir in these particular cities.
Said it once, I'll say it again. West Virginia is the greatest place on earth. That does not happen here. No. So I think that this is another issue that we've kicked the can a lot on was immigration.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know if it would even work. The border wall. So Biden has decided to sign. I think it was 27 new bills to put up more of that wall that was proposed by
Hmm.
Donald Trump.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's a solution. I really don't.
Hmm.
There's planes, trains, automobiles, boats. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just it's not. I don't think it's a solution. What we if we're going to accept all of these people, we have to have the necessary infrastructure and we have to have the necessary vetting process. We can't just go ahead. We cannot do that.
Hmm.
And it's a thing that I wish that they had better lives back where they were from. I understand why they want to come here. I don't know the solution for maintaining, bringing in states worth of people to our
Yeah.
country and
Hmm.
spending 200 million, like Chicago, $200 million
Yeah.
of taxpayer money on it.
Yeah.
And if I'm the average citizen, if I'm an average, union dock worker in on Lake Michigan or whatever Chicago's
Hmm.
based on, near, I mean, my government's not taking care of me; they're taking care. So it's going to create social strife. It's going to create economic hazard, and I think the solution is somebody much smarter than I am coming up with that.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult because the I think the biggest thing is when you have such an influx of people is where do you house so many people? And what's going
Yeah.
to happening is that like unless it's actually cut off for sure, you're going to continue having inflows of people. And what's going to happen is many social services are going to be cut back because you're looking to give first you're giving $100 to 100 people. Now you're giving $100 to 1,000 people. So obviously, you're going to go from making $1 per person now to maybe 10 cents per person or something like that. And as a result, there's going to be a growing divide between those who have and those who have not. Those who are in particular services that deal with people, whether you're electricians, you're a doctor or a nurse, you're HVAC, anywhere where you're servicing people, your services will likely rise. If you are, in a space where it's required licensing, it's very difficult for many people to rise up in terms of those ranks. So if you're in those places, I definitely expect, the nurses and those involved to have some serious increases in their wages. But it's going to be interesting, for the most part, because so many people are expecting a housing crash. And if you are having 5 million people come into the country, they're going to occupy the housing that would normally crash. Now you have a oversupply of people and an undersupply of housing.
Are we? This is going to sound really, really rash and abrasive.
Hmm.
Should we take the approach of sorry, where you live sucks, you can't live here?
Hmm.
I think we're getting to that point where we're going to have to start making that decision, like a very black and white decision on that.
Hmm.
And it's not because we don't want to take them in; it's because we can't take them in.
Yeah.
I think we're doing too much.
Hmm.
We're allowing too many people, as obvious. We can't have a massive population of immigrants live in substandard housing
Hmm.
or be poor forever in our
Yeah.
country. And I, we can't accommodate to the rest of the world, and we can't accommodate to our, you know, our softer side here in this country all the time. We have to start making these hard decisions, and it take care of us.
Yeah.
Take care of us first. I mean, I'll accept anybody as long as
Hmm.
every single American child has a nice meal.
Yeah.
That's what I care about.
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted right now because the baby boomer generation that I was reading about this other day, they make up about 73 to 75% of the tax base, and they're getting ready to drop off here in the next 5 years, 7 years, and there's a need overall for a new working class. Some people are thinking that this is part of the particular issue, but what we see overall is that if you're spending $200 million in Chicago, if you're sending 100 billion to Ukraine and you're sending another, 50 billion to over to Israel, those dollars that that begins to chop from the overall budget of the U.S. government. So dollars that
Yeah,
would normally be going to U.S. citizens, the dollars that would be helping to lubricate the economy, are essentially being pushed out. And what's what was happening is that many of those in Congress are aware of these things. There was a story about, statesmen who were purchasing war like Lockheed Martin and those, other stocks prior to the attack on Israel. So many people are given insight into some of these things that are happening, and some people are getting rich off of it, while other people are, becoming less and less able to afford their daily life and their daily living.
yeah. I've said before, actually, in this podcast, we cannot fund the defense of Europe.
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense for us. They have
Yeah.
their own economies. They have their own tax base. They have to do that themselves. And until every single American citizen is taken care of, we should not send a dollar to anybody else.
Hmm.
We owe Ukraine nothing.
Yeah.
We owe the state of Israel nothing.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I would rather help the state of Israel. I'm totally fine with help sending Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier into the Mediterranean.
Hmm.
Totally fine with that. Israel is our greatest ally. They are our only, if you ask me, only true ally.
Hmm.
Europe will turn their back on us in a second.
Hmm.
Israel will not. And eventually one day the
Yeah.
kingdom of the world will be united under Israel. But so the Ukrainians, sorry, there is a lot of there's a lot of decisions that feel very black and white to me. Now, obviously, they're not because there's so many hands and brains in the situation about who sends money where. We can't fund the defense of Europe. We can't just take care of people that were born here. We have to take care of us first, and then I'm totally fine with funding some defense in Ukraine.
Yeah.